Hello, thanks for joining me today. In this video, we are going to make a miniature stocking using 2 colors of yarn, changing the heel and the toe to red. So for this, it's a little Christmassy, but you can do whatever you want. I just chose these colors, and I hope you have a lot of fun making this stocking with me. And I thank you for watching. If you haven't, please subscribe for more videos like this. And if you like this video, click the like button. And don't forget to hit the notification bell so you can get notified every time I upload a video. Thanks for watching. Let's get started. We're going to start by making a slip knot. And we're using a 12 peg loom for this. So we're making our slip knot. Let me pull up the loop a little. And there's your loop. Take that loop and place it on the first peg. And if you want, you can also place it on the anchor peg, but in this case, I'm just going to start with my first peg. Place my slip knot over, and then I'm going to make tiny little E's all the way around the loom. If you have a cast on that you prefer to do, please feel free to go ahead and do the cast on that you prefer. Okay, now we are at the start of the project, so we're by the anchor peg. So we're going to do the ewrap knit stitch on each peg. So again, we're going to do the ewrap knit stitch on each peg. That's just taking your working yarn and making a U around it. Making a U around the peg, that is. So see? So we are going to do that for each peg all the way around the loom. So keep on going. And then I will show you the next step. Okay, we are at the next step of our project, and we're going to be working on the cuff. Now, I tried 2 different things. I first did a cuff of 15 U-knit stitches, and I decided that I like doing 10 instead of 15. So you feel free to do what you want, but for this particular stocking, I'm doing 10 rows of the U-knit stitch. So I'm basically doing the same exact thing as I just did. On each peg, I'm making a U with my working yarn and taking the bottom stitch over the top stitch. And I'm giving myself some room as I'm working my way around. Now, these stitches are going to be a little bit tight, so just be aware of that. It's different than the ewrap stitch as far as the tightness of the stitch. Okay, we are at the next step. So if you've worked a hat, you're going to understand what I'm saying here, and if not, just try to follow along. We are going to pull the cuff up through the inside of the loom and take the stitches on the end and place them over the peg on the loom. So again, it's very similar to a hat brim, or if you followed along in my slipper sock video, when the cuff is rolled up, how we do the same exact thing. We just find the stitch on the end and it'll match up perfectly to the peg on the loom. So you just find that stitch, just like I'm doing, and just place it over the peg on the loom, one by one. And you'll see right on the edge there exactly what I'm talking about. The loop goes right over. So we're going to do that the entire way around the loom, and then we are going to follow the next step. So you just want to make sure that they're all over on the right side where they should be, and that there's no stitches missing that haven't been placed. So now we're going to knit those stitches over, and again, it might be a little tighter than normal. It's not going to be as loose as the ewrap stitch. That is totally normal. Do not be alarmed. It's supposed to happen that way. It is a tighter stitch, so it's going to feel that way. So just work your way around the loom. And then I will show you the next step on what we're going to do. So here we are back at the anchor peg. Push that down. And now we are going to change colors. So if you see, we've got our red cuff and it's worked nicely. And now I'm going to change colors to white. Now you can change colors or you don't have to. I'm making this a Christmas mini stocking, but you don't have to do that. You can make it all one color if you want. That's fine too. Now, I have to say, however you want to change colors is fine. I'm just doing it my way. What's comfortable for me. So I'm just making a slip knot and I'm placing it beside the working yarn of the stitch that I stopped at. So I'm just going to place it right over and tighten the yarn. And then I'm just going to knot it. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be beautiful. It's just changing the yarn however you do it. So go ahead and snip the yarn you're working with so you can move on to the next skein of yarn. And here again, I'm connecting the two. And like I said, if you have a better way, feel free to do that. But we're just changing the color. And now we're just going to do the same stitch, the ewrap knit stitch. And we're going to do this for 8 rows. So get that extra yarn out of the way, those tails out of the way. And again, it's the same stitch, and we're going to do it for 8 rows. All right, we made our 8 rows and now it's time to change colors again. So we're going to start the heel. So I'm going to show you step by step on how I do the heel. So again, I'm changing colors and we're going to be working with 6 pegs. So we're going to use that same knit, that same ewrap knit stitch, and we're going to count down to 6. Now, I would recommend placing a stitch marker on peg number 6. Stitch markers are incredibly helpful, especially when you're working with larger looms. So we're going to go ahead and do the ewrap knit stitch. And we're going to take the bottom over the top. And here we're going to have 2 stitches on the peg because this is where we changed our yarn color. So don't be alarmed when you see that. So we're going to do the same. And we're going to do the same until we get to peg 6. So again, it's going to be a little tighter doing the heel than if you did the slipper sock video. So just double check, make sure that you get to number 6. Now we're going to wrap the other way, but we're going to skip peg 6. We're not going to wrap peg 6. And we're going to go the other way, doing the same procedure. So keep going. And if your stitch falls off your peg, don't be alarmed. It happens. You can fix it. Just take that loop and put it back over the peg. All right, now we're back to peg number 1. So we're going to skip peg number 1 and start at peg number 2, doing the same stitch. And we're going to do this until we get to peg 6. I like how this is looking by changing the color of the heel. I think it looks really cute, especially for a little stocking. It's really sweet. So you can play around with different colors. Now we're going to go down to peg 6, and then we're going to work back, skipping peg 6 and starting at peg 5. We're going to go back the other way. And we're going to stop at peg 1. So hopefully this is easy for you to understand, because that is my goal. All right, now we're back. Now comes the next part. So we are going to take the peg off of peg 6 and move it on peg 5. Now again, it's going to be tight, so don't be alarmed or think you're doing something wrong. Now take your working yarn and do the same stitch all the way down to peg 5. All right, push that down. So you're going to have 3 loops on your, take those 2 bottom ones and place them over the top stitch. So now we're going to take the peg off, or the stitch off of peg 1 and place it on peg 2. All right, and then we're going to take our working yarn and skip the first peg just like before and go to the next peg, and we're still doing that same stitch. And work our way back up. And again, this will have 3. It'll have 2 on the bottom and then the stitch that you're working with. So just take those 2 on the bottom and knit them over the top. Okay, so now we're taking the next peg on the right, the knit stitch, taking that off and placing it on the peg next to it. Okay, now we're going to skip the first peg and do the ewrap knit stitch again. So pegs 2, 3, and 4 right now should all have stitches on them. We're just moving down the line, and we were initially starting with 6 pegs. So now we're going to take the stitch off of peg 2 and put it on peg 3. And then knit those 2, and then knit the one next to it. So we're going to end up with 2 pegs, working from pegs 1 to 6. Once you're done with the heel process, there'll be 2 pegs on each side without a stitch on them. So we're going to find the loop on the end there and fill the gaps. So again, if you've made my slipper socks, you know what I'm talking about. But if you see there's a loop on the edge of the yarn, on the edge here, and you place that over the peg. And again, it is going to be a little tight, but it will work. It'll go over it. So you just find those stitches to fill the hole, because we don't want a hole in our heel. So this is going to prevent that, obviously, and close the gaps. So through each one, you just place that. See, it's right there, and you just place that over the peg, just like that. And again, it is a tight fit. Don't be alarmed, but you can do it. So once you have all of those stitches on the peg, your heel will be closed up, and there will not be any holes in it. Now, I do have a video on how to do a heel, which is the same technique. I will list it below, but as you see, there's no holes. And again, I will list that heel video in the description box below. So now I already went ahead and changed colors for time purposes. So I'm going back to white. So now we're doing the body of the sock. We've already done the cuff, the ankle portion, the heel. Now we're doing the body. And again, it's the same stitch. So go ahead and do that, and then I will show you the next step. I'm just going to fast forward the video a little bit. I'm sure you've got this stitch down. And again, for time purposes, I just went ahead and changed my color to white. So now I'm doing the body portion of the foot. And you, again, don't need to change colors if you don't want to. I'm just trying to do a little Christmas color. If you've ever made my other mini stocking, this is a bit different as far as the heel and the entire body. So it's not real similar. So a little different, a little tighter stitch. I actually like this one a lot. I think it's really cute. So I hope you like it too. So go ahead and form the foot, and I did 10 rows. If you find that you want to do more or less, go ahead and do that. Now I am finally on the toe. So I have already changed colors for time purposes, and I am starting at peg 4 because after I did the heel, that is my first peg. So again, we're going to do the same stitch, and we're working on the toe, and I'm going to do 5 rows for the toe. So 5 rows of the same stitch. So go ahead and do that. Again, I did 10 for the body of the foot, and you can do more or less depending on what you want. And then I will show you how to end this mini stocking. So here I'm on the 4th peg, so that's my last peg. So now it's time to bind off. So I'm going to take my working yarn and wrap it around probably 1.5 times, and then give the yarn a snip. And you will need your loom tool. You could also use your darning needle if you like that better. I prefer using the hook, the loom tool. So we're going to take our working yarn and put it below the stitch on the peg, kind of like we're doing a purl stitch, and pull that tail out. So we're going to go along and do this for every peg on the loom. This is getting our sock or stocking off the loom. So we're just binding off is what it's called. So again, we are taking that working yarn or now the tail below the stitch on the peg and going around the circle. Now you can take the ones that you've already done off of the loom if you'd like. Make sure you've already done them though. That seems to loosen the tension, at least for me, when I'm working this way. It may not for others, but that seems to help me. So it loosens the tension so it's not as tight when I'm trying to get it off the loom. And again, if you don't like this method, you can also use a darning needle. So we're almost done taking our stocking off of the loom. So we just keep pulling that bottom tail up through the top, and this is our last peg. So now we can get it off of the loom. Go ahead and remove with your loom hook or loom tool, whatever you call it. All right. Now, make sure you have your darning needle. Go ahead and pull the tail. We aren't going to pull it completely closed because we're going to feed it through the hole and turn this inside out. We're going to close it from the inside. So just stuff it through just like that. All right, so there's your hole. Go ahead and pull that so it closes. We want that to close. Okay, and then in this case, I'm just going to make a knot. For security, I'm going to double knot it. And you really don't need to worry about weaving in your loose ends here. All you need to do is give it a snip. So it's secure, it's knotted twice. I'm just going to cut it. Nobody's going to be wearing it. It's just going to be for decoration purposes. So I'm actually not even going to use my darning needle. And that is my mini stocking. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. And I hope it's been helpful. If you have any questions, leave them below. If you have any comments, I'd love to hear them. As always, I thank you for watching, and I will see you at the next video.